Good afternoon. It's time to rise and grind. Melissa Adams here. Sorry I am late posting this, but I have been watching the celebration of Charlie Kirk's life and just, wow, I'm a little shook. So I want to slow down and be bold and share what's on my heart. Everything in your life, your faith, your family, your work, your calling, flows out of this. Knowing who you are and whose you are. If you don't know whose you are, you will always question who you are. And I think that's why so many people are just exhausted right now. We're living in a world that's very loud about identity. It will tell you that your worth is based on your job, based on your achievements, based on your appearance, your past, your beliefs, or even what other people think about you. If you're not careful, you'll start carrying labels that God never gave you. But here's the truth. Your identity isn't tied to performance or perfection or somebody else's approval. Your identity is anchored in God. And when you're anchored in Him, nothing can shake you. Think about this. Before Jesus ever performed a miracle, before He called His disciples, before He went to the cross, He was baptized. And in that moment, the heavens opened and the Lord's voice said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." That was before the miracles, before the cross, before anything that the world would call success. That shows us something vital. Identity comes before activity. Worth comes before performance. And if Jesus started there, then that's probably where we should start too. But here's where we get it wrong. We tie our identity to temporary things. We tie it to success. If I could just achieve this, then I'll feel worthy. We tie it to relationships. If they'll accept me, then I'll matter. We tie it to appearance. If I could just lose 25 pounds, then I'd be more confident. But what happens when those things fade? When the applause stops, when the job shifts, when the looks don't last? If your identity is built on those things, your world crumbles. But if your identity is anchored in God, it is unmovable. So let's ground ourselves in the Word, because here's what the Word says about you. In 1 Peter, it says you are chosen. You're not an accident. You were picked on purpose. In Jeremiah, it says you are loved with an everlasting love. That means nothing can make Him stop loving you. In Ephesians, you are redeemed and forgiven. Your past does not define you. Grace does. In John, it says you are a child of God. You're not a servant begging for approval. You're family. In Romans, it says you are more than a conqueror. You don't just survive, you overcome. Again, in Ephesians, it says you are His masterpiece. You're intentionally created for good works. In Romans, again, it says you are co-heirs with Christ. That means you inherit the promises of God. In 2 Corinthians, it says you are a new creation. You're not who you used to be. That's identity. That's who you are. Look at Moses. When God called him, he didn't feel qualified. His first words were full of excuses. Who am I that I should go? Then he said, I can't even talk. I stutter. Moses saw himself through his own weakness. He defined his identity by what he thought he lacked. He decided he wasn't qualified, and that's the same for us. We disqualify ourselves all the time. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have what she got. I don't have what it takes. I have failed too many times already. But God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Moses went from a man hiding in the desert full of doubt to the one who stood before Pharaoh, who parted the Red Seas, who led an entire nation out of slavery, not because he was confident in himself, but because he was anchored in God who called him. That's what happens when you live from whose you are instead of who you think you are. Because when you forget whose you are, you're always going to question who you are. And here's the next step. Identity isn't just something you rest in. It's something you live out boldly. This memorial has reminded me that we can't afford to be silent. We can't afford just to blend in. We have to lift our voices. You don't hide. You don't shrink back. You don't water down your faith to be accepted. You stand, you speak, you live with courage, because knowing whose you are gives you confidence, and confidence produces boldness. Friend, Don't live under false labels. Don't let the world name you. Don't let your past chain you. Stand boldly in who God says you are. Jobs will change, people will change, circumstances will change, but whose you are never changes. So rise up today, walk in your true identity, be bold, accept the free gift of salvation by confessing and believing in Jesus Christ. Lift your voice, stand for truth, and share the truth. Live unshakable and make a difference. One person can, as you have seen. Because when you know whose you are, you're always going to know who you are. I love you so much. Now go make a difference today.